the states and taking it back to the federal government. And as you know, I filibustered that bill successfully.
That's why I say I'm not asking. I'm just asking for the continuance.
And now the agencies are doing by regulation what they tried to do in the statute, and we are fighting them with everything we got, and we will keep doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, I got 3 questions. I know it's not 5 minutes, but I'll do them. This one, and then this one.
Tell us about a balanced budget amendment. What are the mechanics of getting that done, and what are the realistic chances of it ever happening?
You know, a balanced budget amendment can be written in many different ways. First of all, the mechanics. The bill we passed forces a vote on a balanced budget amendment in October. And so, that's been done. In other words, we have bypassed the political leadership of Congress with a statute and said we will vote on it. We've been trying to get that vote for years. The last one we had was 15 years ago. So the mechanics are done. What the bill will be still remains to be determined. The Republicans have put one out that requires a balance, I think, over a period of 10 years. I'm not sure of the exact number of years. And it also requires that you cannot use tax increases to balance unless you have a 2/3 vote. The Democrats will probably put out a different option, and we may vote on more than one option in October. And then the House will probably do the same thing. If we have different bills, then we will have to coordinate that and conference it like we do in a regular process. So did I answer your question?
Requires 2/3 majority from
Yes,
both houses?
2/3 in both houses. Oh, and the chances, to be honest with you, unless we have a dynamic where people speak out like I talked earlier and we change some votes, we don't have 67 votes in the Senate. But that doesn't mean that, you know, like I said earlier, you don't win every battle in the first play of the game. And we've got to have this vote. We have an election coming up, and I think that there are going to be a lot of folks who today are not in favor of it, who might in October be in favor of it, if the people in this country speak out. And if they are not in favor of it in October, and if we don't get the 67 votes in October, then I think there may need to be an accounting in next November. And we'll have another shot at it after that. So my point is, I think we are in a process now where we have put the balanced budget amendment square dead center into the middle of our fiscal policy debate in America. And one way or the other, we're going to get there. I mean, we've got to.
Thanks.
Yes.
Two-part question, quick. You mentioned that no other economy has exceeded 90%
Yes.
Debt to GDP. And now that we're at 100, is that because the dollar is the world's reserve currency? Question number one. And the second question, do we run the risk of losing that reserve currency status?
I don't believe that the reason we are at 100 is because the dollar is the reserve currency. I believe that, frankly, the dollar has remained stronger because of that, and maybe that has actually helped us approach it a little more slowly. It's Congress's overspending that has driven us over the brink, in my opinion. And the second part of your question, do we run the risk? Yeah, we run the risk of losing that. In fact, China has already announced that they are going to start using a different reserve, and if I understand what they said, I probably shouldn't announce that for them, but I believe that there are some countries who are already saying that, you know, their currency is available for use as the reserve currency in some contexts, and there's already some commentary coming from some of the economic experts saying, you know, they expect that some countries and some others will start looking to other currencies as their core reserve currency. We haven't lost that yet, but we're going to. That's one of the consequences of our mismanagement of our own fiscal policy. If we get to the point where our economy, basically, if we get to the point where the world markets believe that we are going insolvent, then our currency will no longer be a very strong candidate to be the world's reserve currency. And so we face that risk as well. Okay, last question. I'm sorry to hang it.
Okay, so as far as your tax reform goes, you talked about broadening the base and lowering the rates. From what I understand, about half of individual taxpayers don't pay any tax right now. And so did your commission study who would pay taxes and what the effects would be?
Yes, to an extent. And maybe the way I should answer that is only in terms of broad categories. But you are right. Today, about 50%, 45 to 50% of all income earners don't pay income taxes. because their wages or their income is below the taxable levels where either they're below the tax levels or their deductions and credits and exemptions get them below those levels. And unfortunately, well, let me put it this way. Our reform was not a pure flat tax. A pure flat tax would have everybody pay some much smaller rate. Our reform, because it was a negotiated reform from all different perspectives on the political spectrum, was not able to move in that direction aggressively. It was, as I said, a first step, and I think a very important step toward moving to a more flat tax. But it was not a true flat tax. And we studied, the way you do that is you eliminate all deductions, credits, and exemptions. And you just have a tax rate that starts with everybody from certain income levels paying it. And that kind of a tax, I think, would be an even more powerful, reformed proposal. But it was not the kind that we could have, or that we could still achieve, I think, in the current political climate in Washington. I don't know if I answered your question in any detail, but the ultimate answer would depend on how you built back in. Remember, we proposed that you eliminate them all, but that then you build some back in. And the answer to your question would depend on how they're built back in, and we don't give the answer to that. We suggest that we know some of the things that are going to be built back in, like the mortgage interest deduction and so forth, but that we would have to wait and see just exactly what Congress did there in the Finance Committee, which I sit on, where they would make those decisions. Well, let me say, I know we've run over a little, and so Leslie's getting real nervous about getting me to my next